All right. For those of you on the line, if you haven't attended one of these sessions before, welcome to Headset Hangouts. Today we're going to be going through inventory management. So just a couple of housekeeping items. I will be using our fake retailer account, so you're not going to see any live data, but I do encourage you to log into your own retailer account and follow along. So hopefully the steps that I go through today will be easy to follow and you'll be able to replicate those. Ask questions along the way using the chat function, and I will give time at the end to unmute you and let you ask questions like a real human with your own voice instead of chatting. So if you want to wait till the end, feel free to do that as well. Okay, so my name is Amelia. I'm a CSM over here at Headset, and I'm going to just jump into things. So we'll talk about really how you can use our Retailer Pulse platform to achieve that Goldilocks standard that we all aspire to. For example, ordering not too little, but not too much, just the right amount. So we're really aiming to do that with different modules within our retailer platform. If you are following along, once you log in, you should get to a page that looks like this. Just go ahead and click on Retailer, and you will be taken to our Retailer Pulse platform. And when I say Retailer Pulse, I mean our free version of our platform, which contains about 5 or 6 modules over here on the left side. Great, so the first thing we're going to focus on is our inventory coverage module. That can be found under our inventory section here and by clicking on inventory coverage. I already have it pulled up. So with inventory coverage, I'm going to kind of set the scene to tell a story along the way with our training to make it a little bit more contextual for you guys. So for example, as an inventory manager, I want to look at how I'm stocked on my edibles products at my store. And generally I order every 3 weeks, and I want to know what my coverage looks like over the next 3-week period. So with our filters at the top here, we can select some different criteria that will help with our inventory coverage and what that looks like going forward. So you can select your store at the top left here. I have my Denver store selected. Forecast sales based on, this is essentially how many days do you want to look at for the past 60 or 28 days of sales to produce our inventory coverage forecast. I'm going to look at the past 60 days, but it's really up to you. Inventory should cover. So how much time do you typically like to be covered for? And what does your reordering cadence look like? So like I said, I typically order every 3 weeks for my edibles category. Now I'm interested in grouping this by vendor because I want to see which vendors do I need to order from, which ones can I hold off on because I have way too much of their product. Optional category filter. So this is where I'm going to filter edibles because I only want to look at my edible products. But this is also super helpful if you want to look at all of your categories except for ones that you know you're going to be overstocked on, such as non-cannabis related items or paraphernalia, that sort of thing. So you can use the is not filter for that and select non-cannabis related items or whatever that looks like in your point of sale system. And then of course we have optional vendor and brand filters too, if you want to go further. Once you have all this criteria, there's going to be a purple refresh button over here in the top right. You can hit that to pull in all the criteria that you just selected. Once that is done, we're going to scroll down to this inventory coverage ratio. So you see lots of different bars, colors, numbers. I'm going to break it down for you. So basically what we're looking at is, first we want to check out overstocked items. So we can see that we're overstocked on quite a few vendors because we see that these blue bars are kind of shooting up into the yellow band here. So that is considered overstocked. So when we're talking about overstock from an inventory perspective, there's several ways that we might approach cutting down on that inventory. We could either decrease order frequency, run vendor promotions, or better educate sales staff on those vendor specific products. So as we know from an inventory perspective, without managing the surplus, we're really locking up capital in our inventory. We're losing out on opportunities to invest that money elsewhere potentially, such as marketing initiatives, infrastructure development, or even investing that back into faster selling products. So that is something we can kind of start to think about when we look at all of these overstocked vendors and what that really means for our inventory and money profit as a whole. Now, looking in the middle of this bar, we see properly stocked. So that's going to be indicated by green. We have just two vendors that are properly stocked. We have Grow Up Farms here and NCMX. Properly stocked is usually going to be a ratio between 0.75 and 1.25. And I'll explain the stock coverage ratio in just a minute. But I just wanted to point out that we only have two that are considered properly stocked. And then red is going to be understocked. So when we think about understocked, we're thinking, okay, we have too little product on hand here. So this means that we don't have enough of a couple of these vendors to cover the next 3 weeks worth of demand. So Northwest Cannabis Solutions, we don't quite have enough of. Dogtown Pioneers, same thing. And then these other ones we may have either stopped ordering and we just have some in the back stock, or those are running really, really low and we need to consider reordering them. So one thing that can happen with understocked products is that you're risking stock out events and potentially losing unhappy customers who might go elsewhere for products. Personal example, I like beverages, and I know that I have a very close dispensary to me that I prefer to go to just proximity wise, and they frequently run out of my favorite product. So I usually go elsewhere, even though I don't want to, because it's further away, the dispensary that usually has beverages. So that is one real life example of customers who might go elsewhere because you do have an out of stock event. Okay, so now that we have this kind of high level overview of what our inventory looks like, you might be wondering, what does our stock coverage ratio actually mean? So this really just indicates these blue numbers up here, how many times you can cover the product at hand for the selected time period. So for example, let's look at Northwest Cannabis Solutions. This product here has a stock coverage ratio of 0.68. What that means is that it can cover the next 3 weeks worth of demand 0.68 times. So you have just a little bit less than 3 weeks of inventory on hand. So that is what that stock coverage ratio means, just a ratio of how well you're covered for the next selected time period. A couple of things that you can do with this graph, and I should mention also, I almost forgot that the black diamond that you see within these bars is going to be how many units you have on hand of this particular vendor. You can also click into the bar graph to see all of the product mix that makes up this specific vendor too. And you can see by vendor how many quantity you have on hand of that product, how many have sold in that time frame in relation to the last 60 or 28 days, whatever you chose, an individual stock coverage ratio for that product. So that's just a little bit of functionality information there in terms of how our application works. And a lot of the graphs that you see in Headset are pretty interactive. So if you're ever wondering, will this show me something else? A lot of our stuff is hyperlinked, so you can go down a very long rabbit hole within our application. But that's just something to note that you can click on those. Now, if you don't like thinking about this in terms of week supply, you can scroll down to our days supply graph here. So this is going to represent same type of information that you saw earlier with the stock coverage ratio, but instead of weeks on hand, it will show you how many days you have on hand. So for example, let's take a look at our Northwest Cannabis Solutions here. It's kind of, there's a lot going on here, but if we hover over the left dark blue bar, we see again our total quantity we have on hand. And then over to the right is our in-stock average units per day. So on average, how many units are you selling of this vendor per day? And then if we hover over the black diamond here, it's going to show us how many days we have remaining. So we have about 49 days remaining of our Northwest Cannabis Solution product. All right, so if you have any questions about this specific graph or dashboard, I should say, feel free to add them to the chat. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water and then we will continue on. All right, I'm not seeing any chats just yet, but absolutely add them if you have any questions at all. Okay, so now that we know kind of how I'm stocked, I want to get a better feel for what I'm actually selling and whether or not my products are lagging on the shelves. So to kind of start to analyze this information, I'm going to head over to what we call our vendor and brand overview. So carrying on our theme of vendor relationships and kind of looking at what our vendor sales and things like that look like, this is where we can really start to kind of analyze this information. So ideally for each product coming into your store, the equivalent product should be moving in and out of your store. Or sorry, should be moving out of your store. So you can visualize that turnover from this quantity sold versus quantity on hand graph under the vendor and brand overview. And I just realized I should probably show you how to get to that. So we moved out of inventory for just a second, and now we're back in sales under vendor brand overview. So here I want to see how my edible products are moving in and out of my store. So again, we'll set up the filters. I'm looking at the last 30 days, but this is customizable. You can choose whatever date range you want. I'm looking at my Denver store again. My category is set to edibles, and I'm viewing by vendor. So the top statistics here are going to show us what our top seller is. So for our top vendor, we have Ceres here. Total revenue that it's brought in the past 30 days is just above 6,000. Product count is 59, and the percent of revenue that this specific vendor makes up is almost 24%. Count of sellers is going to be how many vendors make up this product mix for edibles. Now, when we're looking down at this graph, what we want to kind of start to analyze is, are our top stocked vendors making up our top sellers? So I'm just going to look over here at the dark blue bar. So the dark blue is going to show us how many units on hand we have percentage wise, and then the light blue is going to be total units sold. So when we're kind of getting a feel for what our top stocked vendors are, we can look over at this dark blue bar. So we have Ceres at about 35%. Craft Elixirs are going to be our second most stocked vendor. And then Grow Out Farms is going to be our third. So I should expect these to be my top 3 sellers within any given time period because they're our most stocked vendors. However, if we take a look at the bar next to it, our total units sold, that's not the case. So Ceres is still number 1 at about 26% total units sold. So that's all good. But our next is Northwest Cannabis Solutions. And then our third is going to be Grow Out Farms. So with this information and at a high level, we can start to think, okay, well, there might be a discrepancy here with excess product that might not be selling well, and I might need to rethink my sales strategy for this vendor's products. For example, we could put a vendor promotion on edibles from Craft Elixirs and hold off on ordering until these figures begin to balance out. The other thing to consider is that Northwest Cannabis Solutions, maybe we need to order a lot more because this is a popular vendor at our store. So thinking about how to reorder or maybe holding off on reordering because there is that sort of discrepancy. Things to kind of like get your gears turning when we're analyzing this type of graph. So with this, when assessing how your promotions played out, a couple of things in the sales module that you can start to take a look at is impact analysis, which will help you do a postmortem on any vendor promo or product promo that you do in your store, as well as discount overview and details. That's also going to be postmortem analysis of that as well, if that's something that you're doing at your store, or even can do at your store, depending on what state you're in. And then I also have a training session all about discount analysis and benchmarking that is happening on Thursday at the same time if you want to go ahead and register for that too. All right. So moving on, again, if there are any questions, add them to the chat. But we're going to jump into reorder report. So with our reorder report, after you have kind of a baseline understanding of your inventory coverage and you're ready to place an order, this is where you can go to next. And I'm going to show you how to leverage this report so that you no longer have to rely on intuition or guessing when placing your orders. So rather you can supplement that knowledge with this report and more accurately forecast your reorder quantities. So here we're going to select a specific vendor. We're going to look at Northwest Cannabis Solutions because if you recall, we were understocked on this vendor when we looked at inventory coverage, and it was our second highest seller when we looked at vendor overview. So with these filters at the top here, we're going to select again our Denver store, trailing 60 days, covering for 3 weeks. Now this is a new one, buffer days. So buffer days is really the time it takes from when you place your order to when you get it in your store. So buffer days will account for that additional demand that you might be missing out on if you just order for 3 weeks. So we like to include a buffer day here. Estimated increase or decrease in demand. This was really meant for holidays, so you can choose whatever percentage increase or decrease that you might have historically had on specific holidays, like 4/20 coming up. If you had a 20% increase, then you can just add that to the change in demand. Now I did select this category filter to be edibles, and I changed this vendor filter to be Northwest Cannabis Solution. So once we have all that selected, go ahead and click refresh. I'm going to reload this here because I did select an increase in demand. Okay, so once we do that, we have our sales stats at the top here. So total quantity on hand is going to be in terms of units, how many units we have, total sold in time frame also in units within the past 60 days. In-stock average units per day, about 12.7. So this is on average how many units you're selling of edibles from Northwest Cannabis Solutions per day, and how many days remaining do you have based on all of this other information. So scrolling down here to the product list, this is going to show you products that are either completely out of or running really low on that you want to consider reordering. So aside from key inventory metrics like total quantity on hand and average daily sold, we have our minimum suggested order over here. So let me just zoom in on this so you can see it just a little bit better. Total quantity on hand is going to be here. Product name is all the way on the left there. In-stock average units per day. Something to take note of this in-stock average is this is the average number of units sold per day when the product was in stock. So out of stock days are not included in this count. That is something that is different for us compared to your point of sale because that doesn't always include your out of stock days. So that's how we're coming up with that number. Now we have total sold in time frame here. So in adherence to this trailing 60 days, estimated days remaining, given all this information, how many days remaining do we have of these specific products? And now this is where we get to our minimum suggested order. So when you are reordering, you can use these numbers to kind of give yourself an educated guess on how much you need. So for example, when looking at this top product here, Magic Kitchen Marma Sour Pineapple, we have 0 on hand currently. Average in-stock days was 1. Total sold in time frame was 10. So maybe we sold about 10 when it was in stock for a period of time. 0 days remaining, and then minimum suggested order is going to be 24 without this change in demand. And then suggested order with demand increase is 29. So this is to cover the next 3 weeks. Percent of in-stock days is also an important metric. So out of the last 60 days, it was in stock 16.7% of the time. So again, going back to that out of stock event, losing those unhappy customers, 16.7% is quite low, but it looks like it was selling at least 1 unit per day. So that might be something you consider reordering. Okay, so that is the reorder report. Hopefully that all makes sense. Another really great thing about most of our dashboards within Headset is that you can actually email this. So if you want to email yourself or your inventory management team on a weekly or semi-weekly basis, you can click the schedule delivery button up here and just fill out these forms, and you'll be able to set and forget this. So if these are filters that you want to come back to frequently, you can schedule that delivery, or you can favorite this dashboard by adding this as a favorite up here. It will keep all of your filters that you added. So for example, if you're frequently ordering edibles from Northwest Cannabis Solutions, this would be a good thing to kind of favorite and not have to fill in all the filters again, over and over again. So that is a reorder report that kind of brings all of our inventory stuff full circle. But there is an opportunity if you want to learn about how to better connect and engage with your vendors for better supply chain management. We do have upcoming training sessions for our Bridge application. And with our Headset Retailer Bridge connection, you and your vendors can work together to come up with an agreed upon inventory level that works for your store. So again, if you want to learn more, shoot me an email using the email address I added to the chat, and I will send you the registration link when it is available. Or you can comment in the chat that you want to be included on that. Okay, and then last but not least, we have an upcoming 420 consumer webinar. So really talking all about how you can get the most out of our industry's biggest holiday. So we're gonna have our analysts on the phone, as well as Krista Raymer from the Vitrina Group. And it's a free webinar, and it's really all about metrics, historic purchasing trends, and example goals for your 420 holiday. So I can also post that. I will post this link in the chat as well. Feel free to sign up for that. I'm gonna attend for sure. It's gonna be super exciting, as 420 is for all of us. So that is all I got for you. And now I'm just gonna let you ask me questions if you want to. I'm just gonna give you the chance to unmute and talk to me like a real human being if you have questions. And thank you so much for coming. If you don't have questions, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, Matt here. Thank you so much for taking the time. I still, though, can't see the stuff coming through the chat. So I didn't catch like the email or anything else that was put in there.
Oh, shoot. Thank you so much for letting me know. I don't know why that doesn't work. Let me just try. Did you get that one that I just posted?
No.
This is great to know because I have been sharing chats with people and no one is getting them,
Oh,
I
no.
guess. Well, I can shoot you an email after this with the
Okay.
information that I talked about. And then you'll have my email if you have any future questions or in the chat, I just said, ask any questions via chat, or if you want additional training, like anything I didn't go over today, I'm happy to set up some one-on-one consultation with you as well.